On today's episode of Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali.
By the time I was 16, 17, I was taking a lot of drugs. Again, searching for something, searching for safety, searching for belonging, searching to just have somebody find me interesting, lovable, to fill this need that I didn't even know hadn't been met. Everyone gets to their I'm done moment then. It's starting to know that you are worthy of getting that support.
Hello, remarkable woman. I'm your host, Dr. Connie Kerali, medical doctor, life coach, and survivor of sexual violence. And you're listening to Speak Shame, a collection of inspiring conversations with remarkable women who have faced and overcome adversity. By sharing their stories, my hope is that you may find strength, connection, and hope in your own journey, and that shame itself loses its power. So sit back, relax, and don't forget to follow the show. Joining me on this week's episode is the amazing Nina de Sausmarez. And Nina is a self-belief and empowerment coach, teaching cool people to give less fucks and step into their power. Thank you so much, Nina, for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. Well, let's kick things off then, because I like to start this show off by finding out a bit about your life, but we're going to do it slightly differently. So tell me, if your life story was turned into a book, describe for me what happens in chapter 1.
Chapter 1 is called The Runaway. Chapter 1 is, we start off where I'm about 16 and I leave home, having absolutely no clue how to take care of myself or about the big wide world out there. I'm at a train station and I've just got some bags with me and I've packed them and I'm heading to Reading, which is where I did run away to. So this is the truth. And I was 16 and it's kind of where my shame story starts, if you like, me just picking myself up, running away from what I felt was unsafe and trying to create a life as an adult. But really, I was just a child. And, I think the whole journey around shame comes from me just growing up so much quicker than I actually really gave myself credit for now that I'm an adult looking back.
Yeah. And thank you for that, because I think just as you finished there, a lot of the time we can look back on our lives and think, oh gosh, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And we realize that actually we were children and you always do what you know to do with the skills and the knowledge that you have at the time. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about that journey.
I'll give it a bit more context so it will make kind of sense. I grew up in a very volatile home environment. My dad left when I was around 6 and was in and out of my life. And then by the time I'd got to about 14, he had made a decision that he was no longer going to have any contact with my brother and I. So my mum really struggled, and I know I'm not alone in sharing this. This isn't new news. But I grew up in an environment where I always saw my mum as looking like she had it all together. But underneath that, I wasn't aware of how much self-destruction and trauma my mum was in. Now I'm an adult, I can feel what that felt like. But as a child, I couldn't put my finger on it. So my mum had really deep, deep trauma issues from her past. I didn't know that. Couple that with being on your own as a single mum, again, trying to do the best that she could. I lived in a home where there was a lot of love. And I think sometimes we can get really twisted where trauma is concerned. We can kind of relate it to the type of abuse where you've got bruises on your arms, or you were malnourished, or you didn't have any Christmas presents, or you were locked out most of the day. But actually, for me, I came from a home environment where my mum was just totally unemotionally available.
Mm.
And the house was very tidy, but it was filthy dirty. And
Mm.
that's really strange. It wasn't a chaotic home, but there was no cleanliness. Like it was dirty. I was dirty, but I didn't know it. Again, it's so brilliant, isn't it now,
Yeah.
looking back? And I always felt very different as a child at school growing up. I was very, very jealous of what other people had, and I didn't understand why. And that resulted in me, Connie, I started to have sex when I was 13.
Mm. Yeah.
I started drinking heavily when I was 13.
Mm.
By the time I was 16, 17, I was taking a lot of drugs.
Mm.
Again, searching for something, searching for safety, searching for belonging, searching to just have somebody find me interesting,
Yeah.
lovable, to fill this need that I didn't even know hadn't been met. But by the time I got to 16, I thought, well, sod this.
Yeah.
I'm going to just met a man. Old classic in a nightclub. And he, showed me his bright, shining teeth and said, come on run away with me. And Connie, I lied about how old I was.
Mm.
And that man lived in Reading. And I was this little girl from Portsmouth. I needed to adult. And I adulted from probably 13. I was wild. I had
Yeah.
no boundaries. And the wheels just came off. And then there was this older guy going, come and live with me. And I thought, yeah, that's it. I wanted a father figure.
Yeah.
And I really, really thought this was going to be it. So off I went. But really, I was running away and I didn't know what. So that's kind of the context.
Yeah.
That's a lot in,
Yeah.
like a bit of a chat. There's obviously so much more to it. But I think this upbringing, this way of being, this childhood, this craziness, this wildness, I was feral. I just didn't give a shit. I just didn't give a shit about myself. And so whatever I could do to numb that and fill a bit of a void, just bring it to me. Whether that was drink, whether that was drugs, whether that was sex. I got into stealing. I stole a lot as well. Again, I didn't know why, but the shame that I felt.
Mm. Yeah.
But I would go to my friends' houses and I would go into their parents' bedrooms or their bedrooms when they weren't looking, and I would steal stuff, little things. But it was obviously coming from this deep sense of,
Exactly.
I know I'm different, but I don't like it. And what is it and why? And all of those questions. So whatever it was that I could do to fill that. And so this is why, I want to talk about this, because I know I'm not alone. And the shame that I've carried throughout my life because of my past, particularly my childhood, my home environment, I think it's impacted me. Well, I know it's impacted me as an adult, and I am a mother, more ways than I really could imagine. We kind of think when it's done, it's over there. And really the starting point of me 16 is probably, where there's one of those kind of like big moments. That for me is, wow, I was just a child. I was 16 and I just said to my mum, I'm going. There was no, and my mum's not alive anymore. And, I'll talk about her a bit later. I love her so much. I've got so much respect for her. But there was no parental, don't do that. Stay home. It's safer here. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Who is this man? What are you going to live on? What money do you have? There was literally nothing. It was just like, go on then. And of course, deep down inside, all I wanted was for somebody to put their arms around me and say, no, don't stay.
Yeah.
I've got you. Let's talk about this. And that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so off I went.
Yeah. Do you know, honestly, thank you so much, Nina, for sharing your story, because you're so right. We hear stories, little parts of stories, but without understanding context,
Yeah.
it can be so hard to really understand why people do what they do, why people are the way they are. And you're so right. This is a story that so many people are going to be able to relate to. So I thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, you talk about deep down wanting your mum to say to you, actually, no, stay here, let's talk it through. But obviously that didn't happen. So talk me through then what happens when you arrive in Reading as a 16-year-old with this man that you'd
The
met in the
bright light
club. Yes. With the great teeth. Yeah.
with great tea. I had to try to create some normality. So we lived in what was like a squat. It literally was like, I mean, filthy. It was, like thinking about where I'd come from. This was kind of like about 10 grades lower, but we kind of made it our home. We slept in a single bed. Like we slept in a single bed. It's crazy together. He worked in some kind of frozen food place and I just got a job in retail. I just thought, right, I'm here now. I don't know anyone. I've got to get a job. So I went and got a job. And that was back in the day where you just used to walk around the town centre with like sort of like printouts of your CV and you would go in and, I've learned to have a lot of fake confidence. That's how I learned to be confident. Now this comes from a really genuine place, but back there, I had to fake it till I made it. And we don't love that saying so much these days. We try to kind of do it the opposite way, just be real and then it will come. So I had to kind of just walk in and give my CV to everyone. And part of where I've come from as well is at school, I just flunked.
Mm.
So educationally, again, as a not blaming, I'm so at a point in my life now where none of what happened to me comes from this place of it was my mum's fault. It was the council estate where I grew up. It was the fact that my dad left. So I'm so mindful when I speak about these types of experiences now that I take radical responsibility, but also our environment shapes who we are at that young age. So there's both things live in duality here, right? So I lied on every CV. I mean, who doesn't? Right? To some degree. But this was like stonking lies. Like I literally walked out of school in my GCSEs. I just thought, why am I doing this? And again, my mum, coming from the background that she'd come from, would say to me, like, I don't have any qualifications, Nina, and I'm doing all right. I've always had a job. You'll be fine. And so again, I internalized that as a model, which you do from your parents, as the truth. So I thought, oh, this is a load of old rubbish. I'm going to leave. So now here I am, 16, little rucksack with stuff, told my mum to go and stick it where the sun doesn't shine, running away to live in Reading with a man that I'd probably seen twice, lying about how old I was. Now I'm living in this squat, sharing a single bed, living off, I used to, like food that we'd stolen to eat. It really was. I mean, it sounds nuts when I talk about it now. It's like, this is my real life. Giving out these CVs. And obviously I got myself a job in retail. And it didn't take long for me to start stealing.
Yeah.
When I was in that shop.
Yeah.
Few things used to start creeping into my bag at the end of the day. And then another really massive thing happened. I was in Boots and it was Mother's Day. And I desperately wanted to get my mum some makeup brushes and I just didn't have the money. So I just thought, just do what I've always done, just steal it. I wanted to be the normal daughter doing normal things, getting my mum a present. And I just did it. There was a plainclothes police officer there and they saw me and obviously grabbed me, frog marched me, rang my mum. The shame that I felt was unreal, like just unbelievable. And of course, then I got the sack.
Yeah.
But when I got the sack, they didn't just sack me at the shop where I was working. They found a load of the things from the shop in my bag too. And this was kind of like a catalogue of events. I mean, it almost sounds fantastical when I share it. It almost sounds like I've made it up. But you can imagine this is layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of shame that I'd been covering over and covering over and covering over from, early promiscuity to alcohol, to drugs, to stealing, and it's all kind of intermingled. And I just grew up feeling like I was just one massive lie. What I was projecting as the person I was on the outside, Connie, deep, deep down on the inside, I hated myself.
Yeah.
I felt like I was unlovable. I was stupid.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want me in their life? I had the lowest of the low self-worth. And I did such a fantastic job of covering that up. I mean, like, Oscar worthy.
Yes. Yes. Do you know, honestly, when you said that, living a lie, and it really just resonates of that projecting to the outside world this image when inside you feel like you're falling apart. And you talk about these layers that building one on top of the other of shame. What do you feel was the turning point for you when you realized this?
Not that long ago, actually. I think
Mm,
motherhood. I
yeah,
became a mum when I was 28.
yeah.
So when we think about my personal timeline, lots of stuff happened when I was really young. Then in my teens, the wheels just fell off as they do. You mix hormones and everything with that. Then my 20s, I moved to London. I'd kind of moved through the Reading thing and went back home for a bit and wasn't allowed to live there again. And
Mm,
found myself in Liverpool, living with another man and his family. And I literally met him on the beach in Kavos. Like there was a pattern here. And we quite often see when you're trying to survive, there are really unhealthy patterns. And I was literally going from man to man, from place to place, trying to find myself. And it wasn't until I met my husband now, who I've been with for 25 years, who was like solid, was everything that I was pushing away because it was unfamiliar. Like when I was presented with anybody that showed me any stability or could help me, I was just like, no, I don't need that. I repelled the very thing. So motherhood and having my own daughters, I've got two daughters who are grown up now. They're in their 20s. They don't live at home with me anymore. But when I then became a responsible mother to two other human beings, I really sort of sat down and reflected on,
mhm, mhm,
better
mhm.
sort my shit out.
Yeah,
And the funny thing about that, Connie, is I didn't.
yeah, yeah.
So there was a turning point, a realization. There's a saying that comes to mind, Connie, when I talk about this. It's like when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm, yeah,
And even though consciously I knew what I was doing to myself, it had become so familiar. There was comfort in my shame. There was
yeah.
comfort. I mean, isn't that wild to say? I was like, I actually quite like it. I liked it allowing me to be a victim.
Mm,
I could feel sorry for myself, which meant I didn't have to do anything about it. I also liked the attention that it got me. I liked the fact that I could be sorry for myself, tell a sob story, and other people would give me attention
mm,
for that, which again sounds wild,
yeah, yeah,
but it
yeah,
really is my experience. And then when I became a mum, it was like, oh, okay, now I get to sort my stuff out.
yeah,
And it just didn't happen. I just carried on,
yeah.
obviously got a lot more responsible, but still deep down inside, I hadn't done any inner work. I hadn't gone on my
Mm,
self-development journey yet. I know I was really super responsible. I was very happy in my relationship, but I just inside, I was just like, I had no sat nav. I just had no
yeah,
compass. I felt as a human being and a woman, I was just sort of free falling. I was this responsible human being now, but I was still very much in the identity of the version of me that I'd always been. And those two parts of me just wrestled.
yeah.
Like, Nina, you're safe now. Like, safety, Connie, was not a
Mm,
place that I was familiar with.
yeah,
When I got that safety, looking back on it now, Connie, I know how fearful I was of losing it.
yeah,
So guess what I did? I sabotaged it.
Yeah.
Because if I was in control of losing it, great, then at least I knew it was going to happen. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 And I think this is something that when people listen to this, they might realize that, oh gosh, actually, yeah, that's probably what I'm doing.
So
And
messed up when you say it out loud, but I came here to really
yeah,
speak my truth in a way that I probably
yes,
haven't really spoken it, because I think about the me then. If I'd have heard me saying this stuff now, I would have just felt so heard and seen.
yes,
But that shame, it pushes you into the ground,
yeah,
and you think you are the only one,
yeah,
only one. And
yeah,
today's conversation is about me going, well, hey, come along with me. You're
yeah.
not the only one.
You're not alone. And I think honestly, this is going to make a difference to so many people. And I honestly, I'm so grateful for you just being so open, so honest. And as you said, speaking your truth. And I want to delve into a few things that you've talked about there, because you talked about realizing the importance of this sort of radical responsibility. And people might be watching or listening to this now and be wondering, okay, well, then how do I get there? What is the work that I need to do? How do I stop self sabotaging?
Mm,
So, talk me through the steps that you took to
mm,
get to where you are now.
I love that. It's easy talking about it, isn't it? But like, how? So first of all, it's the realization. And the realization for me was my behavior is hurting other people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I was in self-destruct, even though I knew that was happening, I was so intent on hurting myself more that every time I hurt someone else, it hurt me more, which got me what I wanted. So strange, isn't it? And true. So there was that. My behavior was starting to impact my children. And when I say my behavior, I'm talking about alcohol,
Yeah.
because this is how it was now showing up in my life. My mum was an alcoholic,
Mhm.
and we were at the point where she didn't have long to live. And so obviously the wheels for me started to fall off. I'm kind of like that swan gliding along on the surface, looking like I've got it all together. And I started getting really drunk, like all the time, and coming home that way to a house with my two kids and my husband. And it wasn't cool. It
Yeah.
was horrible. And my husband sat me down after one really, really difficult episode where I came home one night and just like woke the kids up. I was just all over. I would
Mm.
wake up, Connie, and not even know how I'd got home.
Yeah.
I mean, and alcohol and shame, I mean, they're just like two peas in a pod, aren't they? But this is how it kind of was manifesting in me this time of my life. So we're talking about in my 40s, I'm 51 now.
Hmm.
This has been going on. You can imagine it's been a habitual thing from a
Yeah.
long, 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 long time. And he just sat me down and he said to me, Nina, you need help. And that's all I've ever wanted
Yeah.
anyone. So there was the realization in me. It was like, I think the first step is everybody will get to their I'm done moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I had to know there was a line that I'd crossed here, Connie, that I
Mhm.
don't think I'd ever crossed before.
Yeah.
When it came to my kids, obviously they were my world. And as soon as I realized my behavior was impacting them, that was the shame there was like shame I have never
Mm. Mm.
felt. It's one thing to keep on hurting myself,
Yeah.
and other adults, they can deal with it because they can just drop me out of their lives. They can say, Nina's too much. I can't get involved in her drama. We
Yeah.
can walk away. But my kid,
Yeah.
that was another level. So everyone gets to their I'm done moment. Then it's starting to know that you are worthy of getting that support. Now, there isn't a step-by-step process that I can talk about to that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It just, for me personally, my brother was speaking to me, like, you got to stop this, Nina. My husband was saying what's going on. My kids were seeing things that kids shouldn't really see, feeling things that they shouldn't feel from their mother. That's a whole other podcast. um, and so I was at my I'm done rock bottom moment. Now, I'm not saying anyone who's listening, it has to be as cataclysmic as this, but you will know when you personally are unable to tolerate your own behavior. It doesn't matter how many people around you try to save you. The only one that's going to save you is you. So I was at that moment for me personally. And I read a book called You Are a Badass by a coach called Jen Sincero. My brother had sent it to me. I didn't know what self-awareness was. I didn't know what radical responsibility was. I didn't know what limiting belief, I was not in the coaching space, the self-development world at all. And again, so my brother had seen things were going a bit wonky with me. He sent me this book, read this, Nina, I think it will really help you. The outside influence of my husband, my kids. So it's almost like you'll be in a moment where you can't ignore the signs anymore. Like you would be crazy to.
Yes.
And then it is just acceptance of what's been going on.
Yeah.
And then knowing that you have a choice. Like I'm in my sliding doors moment of life here. The doors are opening and I can walk and get on this new train that's going to take me to this new destination. Don't know what that's going to be like, but it's definitely better than where I'm at right now. Or I just keep walking down the steps.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to keep going down the steps, by the way. So much easier than getting on the train and going to the new destination. So that was my sliding doors moment, having the choice. But knowing I had a choice, again, I don't think I'd ever understood that I had a choice about this because I'd never questioned it.
Yeah.
So my advice to anyone is start to question your reality and know that you have a choice. Now, I'm not saying that you chose what happened to you in your past. That's not what I'm saying. But as an adult in this body now, you have a choice who you want to be.
Yeah.
Your past is your past. It is your lesson. But for me, I was just going through life like it was a life sentence.
Yeah.
This is who I am. This is what I'm always going to be. Life sucks. And I might as well not bother. So I'll just keep on wrecking myself and go exactly the same way that my mum did because I am my mother's daughter. Like that kind of language, Connie, we need to, anyone that's on this journey, just again, don't shame yourself about this, but just get really curious without judging yourself. That's what I started to do, reading the book, my brother and my husband talking to me, the moment with my kids. Slowly, different pins start to drop. I think there is a tendency, maybe within your question, for me to go, yeah, I did that, then I did that, then I did that, then I did that.
Yeah.
But it really is very much your own personal journey, but self-awareness and starting to question yourself, which is really uncomfortable, by the way, which is why we don't do it. And then for me personally, I went to therapy.
Yeah.
I had to go to therapy, and all I did, Connie, is I cried every single session, probably for about 7 sessions until I could even start to talk. I would go there thinking, I've got nothing to speak about today. What's the point in this? And then I would get there and I would just literally like stop, not sobbing, feeling sorry for myself, sobbing, like release, like the sound that would come out of my voice and the way that like I would get to the end of it and it was like, oh, I've just been in a room with you for an hour and I don't even really remember what's happened. So therapy, talking to someone where I felt so safe about everything that had happened, where I knew that there was no judgment, where I knew that she didn't know anyone that I knew, where I knew that, I just felt safe. It was literally like the hug
Yeah.
that I'd always needed,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that safety. And then slowly, slowly, day by day, piece by piece, I started to notice other ways that I was sabotaging and hurting myself, or getting in the way of joy, or getting in the way of saying what I really wanted to say, just coming from that place of, I'm not good enough. No one loves me. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
Like, starting to create a new narrative around who I was by just daily action,
Yeah.
putting myself in situations that normally the old version of me would have just kept telling me, well, that's not what you do, Nina. And ooh, those people over there, they're not your people. You're not going to like them. I had to really, really catch
Yeah.
that habitual broken record narrative, because I was waiting for somebody to come along and tell me, but it was never there. Radical responsibility isn't pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not pretty. It
No,
wasn't
well,
nice work, but
yeah.
it's work that has literally set me free. So that's really, I hope that if anybody's listening to this, play that back, double time it. I don't care, but that's my story. That's me, my journey. Take what you need, leave the rest, and see what works for you, because it's never going to look the same for someone else as it does for us, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think probably the key thing there that underpins it all, it's doing the work.
Oh.
Whatever it is that does work for you, is you put effort into this, whether it's seeing the therapist, whether it's talking to
Mm,
loved ones that you trust, whether it's reading books that are going to inspire you and
mm.
teach you, and whatever, there is work to be done. And I love that you also said it's not necessarily about hitting rock bottom. Your story is different to everyone's, but it's just
Yeah.
recognizing what
Mm.
that point is that's going to turn things around for you.
Yeah, that rock bottom. Can I just speak to that a little bit, just
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
quickly? Because I think when we think about someone's rock bottom moment, we think about them like in a tent under a motorway, or, you know,
mm,
even with less than that. You know, I actually, on the surface, everything looks fine. I was completely functioning, and you would never have known. Like, if any of my friends listen to this, I mean, a lot of them, you know this story, but for a lot of people that know me or know me in the online space, I look good on the surface. Don't get me wrong. You know, I had at the time while all of this was going on, I was a teaching assistant in a
mm,
primary school. I was on it, Connie.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I was on it, you know. So I think we're really good
yeah,
at hiding stuff, aren't we? So it can be a rock bottom on the inside moment. It doesn't
mm,
necessarily have to look rock bottom on the outside. It's just
oh,
this inner place when I'm like, I can't go on like
yeah,
this anymore. Something's got to change.
yeah,
The last point to that was I had to stop blaming everything as to why I was at this point. Because every time I did this, I was giving my power away.
yeah, yeah,
And up until the point where I realized, God, look how much I am projecting onto everyone else. It's their responsibility. It's the fact that school didn't teach me properly. It's the fact that my dad left. It's the fact that my mum just, was having her own difficulties in life. It was.
mhm,
And I'm like,
mhm,
oh my God,
yeah,
look.
yeah,
And again, not a sexy place to look. It's,
yeah,
we don't want to go, oh, it's me. But it was.
yeah.
And that was a really bitter pill to swallow, but like the medicine.
Yeah, no, and I completely understand that, because it's one thing to understand why maybe you are the way you are, and also the awareness of what you're doing. But you're absolutely right. That whole blaming others and without realizing giving away your power, there is so
Mm,
much power to be had by taking responsibility, by owning your story. But as you mentioned, again, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And
mm.
that's why this is work. And that's why I'm also just grateful for you sharing this story, because I think it will give a lot of people hope as well.
Oh, I hope so.
Um, yes. And talk to me about the work that you're doing now. What led you to the coaching that you're doing? empowering others. How did that all come about?
Came from me thinking about the me that I was and the me that I am now, and that space in between. And how many incredible humans. I mean, I mainly work with women. I do have men that come to me. We know that, our energy is what we attract. It's not, the niche, as we say in our field of work. However, I had lived a massive chunk of my life trying to be somebody that I wasn't, to be accepted and loved and belong. And in the process, I completely lost how absolutely magical I am. And in a way, I had to grieve for that little time. And then I thought, so obviously I'd got curious about the coaching world because it saved me. It like really did. And I saved me too. But the two things together, like being in an environment with people that could help me really question myself in a way that wasn't judgmental, was life-changing to me and uncomfortable as well, as we've spoken about. And then, of course, naturally, I gravitated towards, well, this feels like I want to share this with the world. This is like, I can't keep this a secret. And for me, it was just before the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
that I actually did my qualification. I'm an ICF accredited coach. That was really important for me. It's the governing body. It's a really well recognized, this governing body. I didn't just want to be somebody that went online and just did a coaching thing. I wanted to, for me, be the real deal. And so I thought, well, I can't be alone. I can't be the only person that feels like this. And what if I just start talking about it? What if I could help people the way that I have over decades, not even knowingly, learned how to help myself? Like, what an amazing, fulfilling, purpose-driven job,
Yeah.
I wasn't happy in the career that I was in the school. I'd kind of come to the end of that. And then naturally coaching, like if it's meant for you, it won't pass you by. It just like flashed up on my screen one day on Facebook and I was like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, look, I can go there. So I don't claim to be a guru or have all of this figured out. But what I love is just getting amazing people into my space and helping them turn around the belief that they have about themselves. Because the impact, Connie, that it's had on my life, my kids' lives, my husband's life, lots of my friends' life, because I've done this work on myself. It's like a ripple effect. We know that you work on you, but everyone in your proximity gets to benefit from that. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to grab people and shake them up, stop them sleepwalking through their lives and say, you are magical, get out there, make something of yourself, let go of that stuff that's literally been weighing you down. You are a badass. And let's just work through these layers together, because I know you want to go out there and do great things in your life. I know you want all the love that you know that you deserve, but I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. What are people going to think of me? That's all from the past.
Yeah.
And so I kind of set out on my mission to go out there and do it. And I'm still in my own process too. I love that. When I'm coaching quite often and I'm talking about stuff like this with my clients, I'm coaching me too.
Yeah.
We're never at the mountaintop, are we? We're just all going along our own way. And I'm never like, I'm up here and I'm here with my clients. We're together. I'm just on the same trajectory. I'm just a little bit further down that line.
Yeah.
It brings me so much joy.
Oh.
When I get messages from my clients saying, like, I can sleep better. I feel better every day when I wake up. I can see that the sky is blue. I never thought I could do this. It's just, in the work that you do with stuff like you're doing here with me, it gives me this huge sense of purpose, like this legacy. I'm living it now. I do believe legacy is now. I don't think legacy is about what's left behind. And so I'm online all the time. I'm just shouting about it, talking about it, annoying my friends about it. Don't fuck me up. It's really important. You get one shot in this body, in this life. Oh, God, how painful to have moved through it. The driving force really is my mum.
Yeah.
My mum died so deeply unhappy. She was 68. 7 years ago, my mum died. She never spoke about what had been going on in her life, never got help.
Yeah.
She just became this closed heart and eventually just stayed in her house. And I'm like, oh man, if
Yeah.
I can even help one person not do that,
Yeah. Yes.
I leave the world better than when I came into it. It's cheesy, but it's true.
No, no, so true. And Nina, thank you for making such a difference to so many people's lives.
Mm.
And I'm sure that there are going to be people who are listening to this who are like, how do I work with Nina? Where is the best place to find you?
Oh, everywhere, she said. You can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn just as my name, Nina de
Okay.
Sausmarez.
Yeah.
All my links to my website, everything, my links to all the different ways that you can work with me are in there. Or you can just do the normal thing. You can send me an email. You can DM me. I love voice notes. I'm very happily. You'll find I sent you one earlier when I couldn't get, when I was having tech problems. So I think it would be hard not to find me.
And I'm going to put all of that into the show notes. I will make sure that people can track you down.
Thank
And
you.
I've got a couple more questions before we come to an end. The first one being, if you could speak to your younger self now, what would you say to her?
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. You know,
Yeah.
you're amazing. Look at you. Just I look back at old photos of me and I just think, wow, look at what you got through. I would say, don't give up on yourself because, here I am now. I'm 51. I've
Mm.
moved through so much to get to this midlife point now, having these beautiful adult kids who are magnificent. I'd say, look into this crystal ball. Where you are now, this is one chapter in the most wonderful book that you're going to move through in your life. Don't give up on yourself. You're so special. Don't compare yourself to anyone else.
I love that. I love
Mm.
that. And even as you just said, I love you. Those are the words that we just need to hear about ourselves. That is magical. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
And
Thank you for asking that.
the final thing, I always end the show by getting my guests to name one remarkable woman who has inspired them. So if you had to name a remarkable woman who's inspired you, who would it be and why?
It would be my grandma.
Mm.
So my mum's mum. When she was very young, starting out her family, she had two young sons. So this is kind of like mid to end of the Second World War.
Yeah.
And they both died in quite short succession, but they were toddlers, they weren't tiny babies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then many, many years, so they one of them had an ear infection, one of them had a stomach infection, things that now
Yeah.
we would just move through in a second, like stuff that we would just take for granted. And I don't think when I was younger, then much, much later, she then went on to have another couple of children, my uncle and then my mum. But, there was quite a gap. I didn't ever really think about the trauma
Mm.
that would have had. And then to just get up every day and be a parent again and go through all of that again, the strength and the courage and the resilience that must have taken to keep going, and the loss and the grief. I just took her for granted. She was just my grandma and she annoyed me. She had to look after us a lot when we were growing up because my mum was a single mum and she wasn't around, and we gave her a really hard time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think about her now and I just look back and I just think, wow, that is inner strength like I don't even think I've ever known. And I look back at her with so much love and admiration, because, what a woman. What
Yeah.
a woman.
Oh, sending love there, because
Mm,
honestly, she does sound so remarkable.
mm.
Thank you for sharing that with all of us, all the listeners today. Nina, is there anything else you want to share before we bring this to an end today?
Let's talk about shame more. Shame doesn't really can't live in can't live in the
Yeah,
light. Let's just get it all out there.
yeah.
I think today has been a massive step in my shame journey. I want to thank you for that. And quite often when we share afterwards, we can shrink a little bit and think, why did I do that? Why did I say that? I wish I could just put it
Mm,
back in the box. But I promise anyone that's listening to this story, keep giving it light. The world needs your story. It needs your courage. And, today I hope that this conversation, I mean, it's definitely been a light for me. I hope it has been for you, but I really hope it finds its way. I trust that it will, to somebody who might still be where I was 10 years ago, even a little bit before that, and that it inspires them to start taking that responsibility. So thank you so much for having me today. It's been a really beautiful journey in my healing process.
Thank you so much, Nina. I really, really am truly grateful. I truly do believe that your story is going to make such a difference to so many women, to so many people. And
Hmm.
thank you for being inspirational, remarkable, wonderful, all the amazing things. And I wish you well. Thank you for listening to Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali. And thank you so much to Nina de Sausmarez for being my guest on this week's show. Please take a look at the show notes for information on Nina's social media handles so that you can connect with her. If you'd like to join the community, head over to @Dr. Connie Kerali or @Speak Shame on Instagram, or join the private group Speak Shame with Dr. Connie Kerali on Facebook. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get a new episode every other Thursday. Until next time, take care.